Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It's right on the hour. So welcome to the Israel-Singapore Agri-Food Exchange Conference. So it's kind of welcome forward. It's the second day. For those that didn't have the opportunity to join us yesterday, just a few words about the event. It's a joint initiative between the Embassy of Israel in Singapore and the Singapore Food Agency, supported by Padang & Co. My name is Adam Lyle. I'm a co-founder of Padang, and I'll be your MC this afternoon. Just to give a sense of what the initiative is about, it is about collaboration. It's about knowledge sharing between Israel, and Singapore, enabling startups in both countries, scale-ups, to share technology, share opportunities. And most importantly, today and yesterday, we heard from many interesting startups and scale-ups from Israel. There are opportunities to meet with those companies in the networking sessions, and ultimately also people can organize one-to-one business meetings, and I'll give details on that a little later. Now, day two, we have our third track. Yesterday, you can see we had alternative protein in aquaculture. We had some really great presentations and a lot of activity already between Singapore and Israel. So today we'll go immediately after this into our panel discussion. And then following the panel discussion, we'll have 5 Israeli agri-tech companies pitching. And then we move on to the collaborations and partnership section, where we hear about the joint R&D opportunities and the funding available between Israel and Singapore. And then I'll actually come back with some key corporates here in Singapore to provide a corporate perspective of the relationship and the opportunities between Singapore and Israel. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our first moderator for the afternoon. So I'd like to introduce Shlomo Sasson, Director of SHARE. SHARE is the Singapore Hebrew Alliance for Research and Enterprise. Shlomo is based here in Singapore. I'll now pass over to Shlomo to introduce his panel. Thank you, Shlomo.
Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I'm Shlomo Sasson, based here in Singapore, and the director of the Shared Hebrew University Research and Development Company that functions within the CREATE NRF framework. It is really a great pleasure for me to introduce 2 panelists today, Mr. David Tan and Dr. Matan Gavish, in these sessions on urban farming. Indeed, the agri-food tech sector is one of the growing importance in Singapore economy, and is clearly important for the success of the 30 by 30 initiative here. And there is a great interest in developing urban farming, and our presenter today would highlight the link not only between startups and industry, but between the academia and those who do the urban farming on land. I think the highlight of today is to learn how big data sciences toward machine learning, toward artificial intelligence, can really help how to learn, predict, and optimize crop yield within the urban and vertical farming. So our first panelist today is Mr. David Tan. He is the former and director of the Netatech group of companies which specialize in design and build of environmental engineering projects and development of state-of-the-art agricultural technologies. Many of you, I guess, see every day some of the works David has planted all over Singapore in terms of smart irrigation, green walls, greeneries. If I turn my back and look through the window, I can see the facade of the Create Towers, where David really planted a beautiful greenery world there. But in addition to this work, these initiatives, David was also interested in the urban farming. And over the last 10 years or more, he has, with his company, started several initiatives, several types of urban farmings and vertical farmings here in Singapore. And on the other hand, Matan Gavish comes from a totally different background because he has studied mathematics and physics and did his PhD in statistics in Stanford University and had a lot to contribute to machine learning, to data analysis, cybersecurity, until, as he said, he saw the light a couple of years ago and thought that agriculture should be one of the main important venues of investigation for sustainability for the future of our planet. And he believed that his data and his ability and capacity can really contribute to this field. And indeed, he collaborated with several researchers from the Faculty of Medicine. And over the last couple of months, I was really honored to matchmake between David and Matan in order to put them together and start a new initiative that may hopefully bring the academia to the farms, the vertical farms here in Singapore. So let me please start with Mr. Tan, with David, and ask him how does he see the interaction between the farming, the vertical farms, the capacity to technology that is used today with these new areas of data sciences. What type of interaction he could foresee in order to really enhance and bring a new dimension to the field. David, please.
Shalom, everyone. Boker Tov for those on Israel. So to answer Shlomo's questions about how we see urban farming in Singapore and the world, I think we are attracting a different group of technologies. Okay, people like Matan. We never thought of data scientists, AI, and machine learning 10 years ago applied in agriculture. And today we see a new breed of technologies. We are encouraged to see many young people, people who are who are in the IoT, Internet of Things, who specialize in robotics, and some even specialize in the space exploratory to look into urban farming. And how does technology apply? Urban farming is a multidisciplinary. It involves technologies like, the basic technology like mechanical engineering, that how to deliver water and nutrients to the plant, control engineering, how effectively can deliver nutrients and solutions to the plant, such as drip irrigation. Inventions of Netafim in Israel play a very important role to minimize the water usage up to 90%, and also that reduce energy use because drip irrigation will provide water into the substrates, and the substrates will hold the water for for 1-2 days, so that the pump will not need to run every day. To the architects that in the community of architects is coming into the picture as well. For example, you see the picture behind me. Okay, that is actually the first vertical farm that is built side by side with the residential in Singapore, so that we can enable community to farm together to cut down the cost of the supply chain. Shlomo?
Thank you. Matan, could you really give us a highlight? How would you foresee the interaction of big data sciences, machine learning, artificial intelligence with the development and function of these vertical and urban farms?
Sorry. Yeah, so I was saying, to me, this is one of the most exciting scientific problems of our time. It's like a modern day Apollo project. And if you do the back of the envelope calculation of what Singapore's 30 by 30 program means, you see that it's a staggering problem that requires new breakthroughs in how to do this efficiently, how to grow plants very efficiently in dense areas. So that machine learning and artificial intelligence are natural candidates for that. I don't think that it's publicly known the extent to which these technologies have actually advanced in the last, say, 3 years, even, or 5 years. The things that we can do with artificial intelligence are staggering. And the thing that I see as a great opportunity is to keep every plant in an urban farm as happy as possible. So you can look at the picture behind me, and you see that every plant gets a special treatment. And that is only possible because the computer is strong enough and their algorithms are sophisticated enough to understand the status of the physiological status of every plant in the urban farm. And then also coordinate what's going on in the farm and also across farms, so that we can actually have like a central nervous system across urban farms in Singapore. And that to me is an amazing problem. And I'll be very happy to see more and more people from computer science working on that.
Can you please tell us what type of data you'd like to collect from the environment or by sensors? It could start with satellites down to a single leaf sensing.
Right. So satellite sensing and drone sensing is very different to what I'm interested in, which is urban farming, of course. And a plant is like a small manufacturing plant. There's a reason why it's called a plant. So we want to keep the plant happy. We want to keep the materials coming in, and to understand that, we have to understand the environment of the plant. And then we have to understand the physiological status of the plant. And so what we would like to do is to measure everything that we can about the environmental conditions of the individual plant. And that is something that's presumptuous. It's not easy to do. And then also at the same time to use cameras such as hyperspectral cameras to understand the physiological traits of the plant. And that requires image processing that is not trivial. But fortunately, image processing has come a very, very long way in the last couple of years. So it's actually possible and foreseeable that we'll be able to close the loop and understand the connection between the environmental traits, the environmental conditions, and the physiological status, so that we can understand for each and every plant if they're happy, if the plant as a manufacturing plant is working at capacity. And of course, keeping every plant at capacity is what we need, because as I said before, achieving 30 by 30 in a decade requires every bit of efficiency that we can master.
David, if you look at the current situation today, in which there is some sensor and sensing capacities that you use, how would you foresee the future, the near future, in the next, say, 5 years here in Singapore?
Mm-hmm. So you see, Singapore, we are so small. We are 30 times smaller than Israel, when the Israelis say, Israel is very small, 22,000 square kilometers. For us, we are 700. So how do we farm with such a small land? We have to find spaces that are not being used right now, or traditionally is not, there's no any opportunity cost. For example, on the side wall of a residential, the farm behind you can see. The sensor technology is important because when the farm is being decentralized, we are talking about distributing maybe thousands of farms that attach to building, and you need to centrally monitor and control them. Otherwise, it's going to be a very difficult, laborious operation. So with the IoT connecting to the cloud, we are now able to control and monitor every single plant, like Matan says, okay, up to the plant level. And again, on the wall, the light distribution is different. So we need to match the wall light intensity, and we call it daylight indigo, how much light photons that will hit on the wall at a different facade elevation of the wall. And then we can correlate to the type of varieties of plant, okay, that we can farm to achieve the maximum yield. Okay, so these are some of the sensors that we can use. The other one is the solar radiation. So for example, like now in this period of time, we have raining season. So we actually can put solar panel on top of the roof, and we can harvest the solar during the time whereby maybe from March to July, where we have a lot of solar radiation. We can collect them, and then we can sell back to the grid first, okay? And then over the year end, when we do not have enough sunlight, we can turn on the supplementary light of the sunlight, for the sunlight. So we can achieve a net zero electricity, because energy cost is one of the things. And when we farm for Singapore, we have to farm vegetable that is consumed majority by Singaporeans with an affordable price, all right? So with the sensor technology, with the supply chain, with the AI and ML, we can even optimize the cost versus the market price. So basically, we are now able to decide whether to turn on the light by the artificial intelligence, matchings according to the profitability and the market price at the point in time.
So, Matan, can you tell us a little bit how was it? How did you really transfer from the traditional computer science research into a newly frontier of agricultural research? And what obstacles did you find, and how, to what extent the academic milieu was important in order to get to this stage where you can really talk to a developer and try to implement your knowledge and theirs into an existing vertical farm?
Well, you know, Shlomo, as scientists and engineers, we're usually obsessed with problems. And I felt it's important to be obsessed with the right problem. And at a certain point of my career, I was asking, okay, what is the right problem to be obsessed with? And I realized that from an individual and a national standpoint, as well as a global standpoint, I should be obsessed with how technology interacts with nature and with food security. And that seems to be one of the most pressing problems. And I was looking around and seeing that agriculture was not considered cool in computer science. You know, I lived in the Silicon Valley for years, and we all know what is considered cool there, right? So one of the problems was to convince people that this is the right problem to be obsessed with, that this is an interesting problem, that the scientific challenge here in precision agriculture, technology-based agriculture, as pertaining to machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science, software engineering, IoT, and so on, is actually fascinating. And it's still a work in progress, but any day of the week, I will convince anyone that is interested that this is fascinating from a scientific point of view, regardless of the fact that it is the right problem to be obsessed with. And now what was very interesting for me in making a connection with Singapore is that there's no other administration in the world that I know that is obsessed with this problem, rightly so. And what I see that can emerge from an interaction between Israel and Singapore is not only technological solutions for the problems at hand for food security, but also maybe a quantum leap in what technology can do for agriculture and for nature. So some of the problems were methodological, and most of them were actually learning enough about plants and changing my mindset and the mindset of those around me.
Yeah, you changed mine from professor from ecology. I started now to think about agriculture twice a day at least, because machine learning is too difficult. But the idea of bringing them together is really quite fascinating. So to conclude, I would like to ask you and Matan to give me your vision about your specific collaboration that you've been planning for the last few weeks, and probably would attract other people from the academia and the industry in Israel to come on board into this venture.
All right, David, you want to take that? Or should I?
Yeah, I think both myself and Matan, we are technologists. We want to encourage more young people to come into agriculture space. Agriculture space right now is also very exciting and it's uptrend. It's as good as a .com, time. So we want to encourage the young people not only looking at the blockchain and AI and ML alone, but have interface and integrate with something that's so grounded. I always say that we have the most virtual and we ground it to the most basic. This the Maslow hierarchy. We ground the most actualized onto the most grounded, rooted food and water that is a basic need of human mankind. So we want to encourage young people to join our team. Matan?
Certainly, and Shlomo, to answer your question, we were thinking about what would be the absolute moonshot in terms of technology. So how can one increase efficiency in an urban farm dramatically using technology that is now available and actually is not even expensive to deploy, but has not been leveraged? So what we identified is that it's possible to integrate sensors, advanced sensors that are developed in Hebrew University in the agriculture department with intimate knowledge of plant physiology, and remote sensing, meaning hyperspectral cameras and IR cameras that are going to hover above or alongside the farm and measure each individual plant, and then integrate that with AI. And what AI can do and machine learning can do is to predict. These are machines these are amazingly sophisticated prediction machines. And what we would like to predict is how the plant, how happy will the plant be based on its conditions. And that is a very hard problem. And I'm happy that it's a hard problem because it's a fascinating problem.
Absolutely.
And finally, how can we, once we make a decision, once we know which way should we change the environmental conditions to make the plant happy if it's not happy, how can we make this change as quickly as possible? For example, the sun moved a little bit. So a certain plant is a little bit in the shade. So we want to change the illumination on that plant. For example, one plant in the farm needs more water. How can we deliver water to that plant so that the change will be very quickly? This requires new thinking about substrates and soil replacements and so on. So bringing everything together appears to have substantial potential value for efficiency in an urban farm.
Thank you very much. I think we've come to an end. This session has come to an end. But I invite you all in a couple of years to David's vertical farm to see some of these new visions already practicing in reality. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shlomo. Thank you, Matan. Thank you, David. Great to hear about moonshots, sort of drone shots, and happy plants. And this whole idea of the intersection of data and agri, I think is really exciting. And there's so much that can be done leveraging both Israel's technology and what we're doing here in Singapore. So thank you for setting up the scene for the pictures that will now commence. So gents, if I could ask you to turn off your videos. Our first presenter this afternoon will be from Vertical Field. Noah Winston, who is Marketing Director, will be our first presenter. So Noah, if you could turn on your video and share your screen, please.
Okay. So my name is Noah Winston. I'm the Marketing Director for Vertical Field, and I would like to present you Vertical Field and what we do. We manage a few technologies, but today we're going to talk about vertical farming. So just as a general, one of the main global challenges we face is feeding rapidly growing population over the next several decades. This will cause, obviously, a few social and environmental ills like climate change and greenhouse gas and resources depletion and toxic chemicals, water crisis, urbanization, because more people are going to live, of those people are going to live in cities, food waste and food insecurity. It's not moving. Okay. So we at Vertical Field, we're an ad tech company that we develop innovative and proprietary growing technologies for the urban ecosystem. We believe that by integrating innovation with nature, we can create vertical solutions that turn cities into hubs of healthy food, wellness, and sustainability. I mentioned before that we started with active living walls as a young company, and we soon learned that we would like to give holistic, we're going with the holistic approach solution to deal with both segments for active living walls and green cities, but also in the agriculture sector for vertical farming. Today, as I said, we're going to talk about vertical farming. Vertical farming is one of the hottest trends that aim to solve all the mentioned problems. One of the main solutions that the company is focused on is a soil-based system for the urban ecosystem. We believe that everyone deserves the right to local and healthy food, optimum well-being, and sustainable planets. And that's why we developed a soil-based vertical growing system that makes the most efficient use of urban spaces for agricultural spaces. This is our vertical farm. And as I mentioned, it's soil-based. And if you dig into this sector, you'll see that I believe majority of the vertical farming that are for today are using hydroponic system, and we're using soil-based geoponic system. We're talking about a portable farm constructed in 40 or 20 feet containers, plug and play growing system. At the end of the day, we get fresh produce, fresher and longer shelf life with zero pesticides, consistent produce supply. Everything is monitored and managed with an IoT top niche software, and everything is automated, including the irrigation, fertilization system for maximum crop yield. So if you go into the world of vertical farming, as I mentioned, you see hydroponic solutions that are mostly using stacks or shelves, and we're using geoponic solution. And I think this is why we actually called ourselves Vertical Field, because we are literally a vertical field. Our technology is a combination of it's a combining of the best high-tech with nature bounty of growing real produce, data-driven climate control technology, plug-and-play system, proprietary soil-based substrate, modular pod design, automated lighting and irrigation system, advanced IoT software and UX platform, optimized conditions, and obviously everything that is seasonality constraint. With no seasonality constraint. Our vertical farm benefits, we get more yields, and as I mentioned, zero pesticide. We eliminate the transportation and cost and everything that is operational cost. It's easy to operate, cost effective. Some facts and numbers. We are 40 feet, between 40 feet container can produce between 5 to 7 different crops simultaneously. And vertical field uses 90% less water than conventional farming. Vertical field grows up to 4 times yield than conventional farming. And the yields can grow, the cycle is in 21 days and can be harvested every day. This is what we currently grow, and this is the future. We mostly focus on leafy greens, herbs, and lettuce because their cycle is shorter, but we are working under development these crops, mushrooms and strawberries. You can see a few projects of ours that are happening in Israel mostly and in the US. And I would like to share a short video.
Welcome to our real field, 20 or 40 feet container that can grow fresh and healthy produce all year around. Quality and price of produce that brings the highest level of vitamins and nutrition to the end consumer. We are fitting nature into our modern life, a vertical farm inside the city where you grow your own food in the city.
So this project was in Tel Aviv port, and it's a project we were very proud of. We were aiming to explore the possibility of growing inside the city, in the middle of the city, in this beautiful location. And we're hoping to explore into more regions and more countries through 2021. That's it.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's get straight into the questions from one of our attendees. One of the reasons a carbon emission, currently indoor or close space farming emits more carbon dioxide than is saved from transportation. How do you feel? What are the emission savings with your solution, I guess is the question.
Well, obviously, if you compare it to conventional agriculture, we don't use heavy machines. The only thing that we do use is electricity, obviously, but that's also under development to use solar energy in the near future. In terms of carbohydrate, so again, this saves because we don't use the heavy machines and because of the food system account pretty much all of the greenhouse gas emissions.
Sure. Ultimately, most of the questions that come back when we're looking at urban farming and container-like solutions does come down to cost per kilo, which is one of the questions. So essentially, if you're targeting these containers at, what's the profile of a typical customer that you expect? Is it supermarkets that are wanting to have local options there? Is it large food outlets? Who's a typical customer?
So basically, we are targeting retail customers, supermarkets, but also restaurants and any corporation or any institute that grow food. It could be between schools and nursery homes and hospitals that can use our technology quite easily to grow food on their premise.
How does cost per kilo typically stand up against traditional agriculture?
So we do have a few projects right now in Israel. We have projects with Rami Levy where we installed vertical farms at the entrance to the supermarket, and we harvest every day, and the produce is being sold inside on the shelf. And because we eliminate from the food chain, we eliminate some of the very expensive factors, we can, at the end of the day, utilize this saving back into the consumer pocket, meaning we can, at the end of the day, sell the produce for the same price that any other produce is being sold, and allow ourselves to even sell a premium produce that is fresher and healthier, so the consumer gets a better produce for the same price, because of the elimination of some of the very high cost things that the supermarkets can save.
Okay, just a quick last question, and then the other questions we'll handle online, or if you could stay on and answer some of the questions, or in the networking session, just to give people a sense of order of magnitude. 40-foot container, how much is that going to cost me?
A 40-foot containers can cost you between 100 to 100. 40-foot, it depends. We have the 4 walls and the 2 walls. 4 walls is like, and it's another wall in the middle that can produce from both sides. So that type of a container will cost normally between something like $150,000.
Okay, great. So as I say, if you could look at some of the questions online and see if you can answer those. And then folks, if you haven't had your question answered, at the conclusion of the 5 pitches, we'll have the networking session, and then you can go and speak to Noah directly, and also you can make one-on-one meetings. Okay, thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon, Noah. Our next pitch is from Grow Director, and we have with us this afternoon Dima Chernombilsky, apologies, Dima, who's the CEO. I saw you there before, Dima.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to share. Okay.
Great. Dima Chernombilsky.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Dima Chernombilsky. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Grow Director. What we actually do, we can automate any indoor facility for any grower. Depends on the size. Our vision actually is to be the leader of IoT world of precision agriculture based on SaaS. Our product can increase your yield up to 38%. It takes you, if you're a small facility, up to 15 minutes to link all of your equipment. It can save up to 20 hours a week of labor work, and we can grow up to 2,000 plants. We have already started our sales in Europe and Australia. Now, we actually want to help 2 industries. First industry is a grower industry, and the second industry actually is a producer of grow equipment. So the problem of growers are as following: unstable product, because it's very hard to grow the same stable product without monitoring and controlling all the environment. Needs for constant management. If you want to grow something good, you need to invest a lot of hours, a lot of work into it. And it's hard. No automated problem identification, because users have to identify all the problems by themselves. Many controllers are in the market actually do not talk to each other. You need to buy several types of controllers and work with them independently. And there's no external support as to agricultural needs. This is for the user side. Now, and for the producers of grow equipment and distributors, they have even worse problems. They have no connection with their clients. They don't know their location, no needs. They actually know nothing about the clients, which makes their work very hard. They cannot know what the clients might need, and they don't know what next sell the clients can be done to the client. So actually, we are solving all of these problems with our product. First of all, about the distributors, there's additional revenue stream. I will tell you why. Because Grow Director control and grow everything, it's know exactly what the user uses, what he needs, and what is his problems. This information can be shared with distributors, and thus actually add an additional revenue stream, because we can actually advise the user what kind of equipment he needs, what is lacking, and what he will need next, and give him the best advice we can do. Second thing, it's online agronomist. Actually, now we're living in abundance of information. What does it mean? If you have any problem, let's say your car, you have some red light on your dashboard, you go online, you have like 100 different solutions. The same thing with agriculture, and even worse. You show your problem to agronomist and give it to 2 agronomists, he will give you 3 different answers. What we actually do, actually have a live online agronomist who can actually always communicate with the client and tell him and solve his problem. Also, a plant is like a baby. If you want to really solve his problem, you need to know all of his history. So through our device, he will know on the environment what's happening to the plant. Thus, he can give much more precise and better answer and get a better help to the user. Preset recipes. If you have different kind of grow, let's say tomatoes, potatoes, whatever, we'll have preset recipes pretty much with a push of a button. Our controllers knows how to grow in the best environment. Because we can control the environment, we can give a stable and predictable product to the grower. Additional thing for the grower, it's online community. They can share their progress, they can share their knowledge, and they can share preset recipes. And of course, a data collection. We collect a lot of data. Thus, if the growth cycle went very well, a grower can, with push of a button, replicate for the next growing cycle. Or if something didn't went well, he can go into the data and see what went wrong. These are solutions. There's controllers on the market already, but we are actually giving the fullest solution for the grower. The market is actually growing like crazy. Only over 5 last years, there's increase of 63% of millennials which going into gardening. And I don't need to tell you what happened after a pandemic. Everybody want to grow, everybody want to be self-sustainable. Indoor farming market also growing, gonna reach almost 200 billion in 5 years. Hydroponic market gonna reach 17 billion in 5 years with annual growth of almost 12%. Organic food market, crazy growth of over 15%, gonna reach almost 400 billion in 5 years. Let me show. I will show you about, there's not much time, so we'll tell a few words about our co-founders. Our first co-founder is David Gornstein, actually a high-tech entrepreneur with a lot of experience and proven exits. Second co-founder is Sergey Gandlin, actually a hardware engineer with different companies and a lot of knowledge in hardware. Myself is a CEO. Dima, I have a lot of experience all over the world, including marketing and management. And this is just a few points. I understand my 5 minutes are up.
It's okay, David. You can keep finishing.
So we have a few main points actually working for us. A rapidly growing market, a unique product with IoT and SaaS, already proven sales in Europe, solid business plan, synergy and experienced team. And we're actually tackling 2 industries, the growers and the distributors, or the producers of agro equipment. And those 2 industries are actually lacking solutions that we give them, especially the distributors and the producers of equipment. They have no idea about the clients, they have no idea what they need, and we can give all this information to the producers to help their clients grow better.
Okay, Dima, thank you very much. You skipped over your funding slide. Do you perhaps just want to go back to that and talk us through that?
Sure. So we're actually expecting to grow our sales annually by developing new products and by entering new markets. Currently, we only started with distributors in Europe. So this year sales are very modest. The next year, after the users and distributors actually use our product and start distributing, we see much bigger scale. We're gonna launch in 2022 the Grow Director 3.0, which can actually tackle much bigger facilities that we are growing now. Currently, we're getting with a medium and small market, which actually have a lot of needs to those things I told you, like information and controlling.
Mhm.
By 2023, we're gonna launch additional product, which we're gonna upgrade the current product using the feedback that we got from the clients, because developer work will never end, even in 20 years. And by 2025, we actually want to go to the mass agriculture with huge indoor facilities. Then we can give much more income, the biggest income actually, as well as the biggest clients. So this way, we're going to tackle all of this chain from the smallest grower to a huge industrial grower.
Okay, you mentioned that you're already in Europe and Australia. What aspirations in Asia?
This is our next step. We're currently a small company, so we cannot tackle the whole world. Also, we want it very, very much. And yes, we are very open to any new clients, any new collaboration all over the world.
And what have been the greatest challenge to growth so far? I mean, I can see you're projecting, as you say, relatively modest revenue this year. What has the take up been like? What are the typical objections you're getting?
First of all, market penetration with a new product takes time. And this is a unique product with unique solutions. So people want, first of all, to use it. And it takes time because it's not like let's say an iPhone that you use it for 1 minute and you know it's worked. So you need to grow 1 or 2 cycles, which can take up to 6 months. Well, this is why initial penetration is slower than the next steps. Once you're known in the market, it's much easier.
Sure. You showed a competitor slide, and you had ticks in all the right boxes.
You're trying, thank you.
Given that you do have ticks in all those boxes, what is the toughest piece of competition for you in terms of what do others offer that's much the same as you that you have to beat?
Many competitions are actually giving nice solutions for automation and growing and a good scalable solution. But nobody currently actually tackles the 2 major problems, the 2 industries of growers and producers, giving the producers a data and giving the growers help.
Right. And I think that's a great way to finish up. So thank you very much, Dima. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Folks, if you've got more questions in the networking sessions, or you can seek us out and make an appointment to speak to Dima directly. Okay, our next pitch this afternoon is from BioLed Eco Light Systems, and joining us will be Uriel Velej, who's the CEO of BioLed. Uriel, if you could turn on your video.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you and I can see you, so all
okay, good. My name is Uriel Velej. I'm the founder and the CEO of BioLed Eco Light Systems, of BioLed. I will share my screen and then I will be ready for your questions, okay? Okay, everybody can see me, I understand, yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We heard Noah from a vertical field about the situation of the growing population by 2050. But the main reason I want to point is that even today, 12% of the world population is not is at a starving situation, and about 34% of the world population, they don't eat well. So this is a big problem, and what we do is the solution is intensive horticulture grow using artificial light, minimum quantity of electricity, water, and space. And many solutions are coming up. But the main thing you need is light, and this is our business. I want to explain exactly what we do, what is the difference of our light among the others, And the first thing is a powerful modular grow light, which is extremely efficient. We are sharing research with Osram and Volcanic Institute, and we are already selling, mainly in Israel, and we will talk about that. What is special in our light is very light weight. It's a driver on board technology. As I said, very efficient, and it is designed for the most extreme environments. This is the basic. It comes in bars. You can add them vertically or horizontally, or you can put a parallel or serial light. And we do a lot of installations, and we are doing for cannabis. You can see installations in China for pepper, a very big greenhouses. And you can see in the number 3, it's a vertical field, which Noah was before, the first speaker. And we are the provider of vertical field. We are doing a big project in Israel with a large supermarket chain. And also you can see you can use it also for home. This is a celeb in Israel that is for small system for home horticulture. You can do it, but you can use it as the same. What is different? There are 2 different kind of light that are used today. One is the full spectrum light, which is cheaper, but a little bit less efficient. It is what is mainly used in the US. And we have also the photosynthetic light. The difference in the full screen light, the main difference is that you are using chips with the phosphor, and in the photosynthetic light we are using we call it discrete LEDs, that they are providing a single photosynthetic spectrum or wavelength, a single photosynthetic. In the full spectrum light, in which we add some of the hyper red light, we can provide up to 2.7 micromole per watt, which is the most very efficient. But if we are using a single spectrum, a single wavelength light, we can reach more than 3.5 micromole per watt. Micromole per watt is very important because it is the cost of our light. How many photons we can provide with a watt. We have some specifications. I'm not going to show everything and to talk about. You can meet me later in our private chat room. So I'm going forward. What is very special in our technology? We have a proprietary dynamic spectrum technology and how we provide it. First of all, when you are talking about dynamic spectrum, it means that you can change the wavelength of the light, and you can simulate sunrise, sunset, middle time, day. And it's very important in some crops, in a place like containers, like with vertical field, that you can accelerate the growing process by having different wavelength during the day. The thing that is also special is that we communicate with the lamps through the electricity lines, and we don't need any infrastructure. I will talk about in the next slide. Our light, because it's very efficient, we don't need to use aluminum. The body is polycarbonate body, and we have a proprietary driver which comes with 2 different channels, so you can change the spectrum of the light. and also comes with our telecommunication system that communicates directly with the encoder without using any infrastructure, just the lights. It's just the electricity lines. It is a patent pending technology. Here you can see the system. The encoder is connected to our servers, to the cloud, and is connected to the lamps through the electricity lines. We can add sensors, Wi-Fi sensors, such as a light sensor that measures the photonic intensity. And also in the future, we're going to add a video camera that can analyze the rate of growth, the color, and the morphology of the plant. The idea is to reach full automatization and cooperate with the companies that produce managing systems, like the company that was before, that we have seen before. The other thing we can do is provide monitoring and IoT monitoring and a SaaS service. And the unit will have artificial intelligence, and it will analyze the advancing of the system, the rate, the quality of the crop, and also automatically change the spectrum according to the results. The other thing.
Interrupt. We're going to be running out of time, and I just want to give some questions.
Okay.
Perhaps one of your slides would be answering this. Getting down to the hard end, how much does a light tube cost? What is the lifespan? Perhaps you can take us to some of the cost advantages.
Okay, I will running a little bit the slides during your question. You can see some of our tracking. Look, the cost of the single bar, it's about $55. It's a 1 meter, 1.2 meters. It's about $55. Because it's you can add them linearly or parallelly. You can make your lamp as desired. Here you can see in this slide, you see the biggest installation in Israel, indoor cannabis installation. Here, each lamp is 480 watts. The cost of each lamp, it's about $700.
On a competitive basis, how do your lamps compare to others in terms of output? And as you said, microns per watt.
We are the leading company in the world in efficiency. We have the certifications from OSRAM. We are, you asked me a question, you can see here. If you see in the, where I'm signaling, we are comparing with Fluence, Lumigrow, Valoya, Heliospectra. We have more than 3 micromoles per watt.
Right.
And why we do that? Because we do the driver ourselves, which is an extremely efficient driver. Nobody else does it. And we also do the telecommunication ourselves. It's a complete system, a holistic system. Okay. So because I'm running out of time, I'm showing some tracking. This is installations in China, in Shijiazhuang. We did extremely big installations there.
Yes.
This is another cannabis installation in Israel. Another installation in China. And this is a vertical field installation in one of the malls, as Noah said. Okay. And this is also for rose growing in Israel, okay? Our partners are OSRAM and the Vulcan Institute. We are researching together with them, we're cooperating with the research. And we are looking for cooperation and looking for partnerships. And we've just finished raising some money now, but we're going to next raising time very soon.
Okay, well, thank you very much, for outlining all of that, Uriel. We'll leave it there now and make way for our next presentation. But anyone that wants to ask more questions, please avail yourself at the networking session and visit Uriel a little bit later. So now our next presentation is coming from Roots, and we're going to be joined by Mark Fishman, International Marketing Manager.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Mark, I can hear you, and if you could share your screen, it would be good to go.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, all good.
All right. So first of all, hello. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us. My name is Mark. I'm from a company called Roots Sustainable Agricultural Technologies. And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of roots. This is something that is really unlooked, because you don't see the roots when you look at the plants, but this is where all the important parts of growing actually happen. All the nutrients, the water, oxygen to the plant, everything. Okay, so you can already see in the small picture, something that I want to show you, what is the difference between treated and untreated plant with the roots. Two plants that were planted in both at the same time. So the challenges basically that the world is facing and we want to address, first of all, is to reduce the heat or cold stress in the greenhouses. If we are talking about Southeast Asia and Singapore mainly, so we are talking about a greenhouse that can come to 30, 35, even 40 degrees in the summer. And we all know that the cooling cost is very, very expensive, and it is very difficult to reduce the heat stress. The second thing, of course, is to reduce the energy consumption in the world. We all want a better world to live in, and to reduce the use of herbicides and pesticides in our food. We don't like to eat the things that our fathers had to eat with the DDT, using DDT, right? And finally, to increase yields and make more money. So the solution that Roots has to offer is controlling the temperature of the root zone, heating and cooling the root zone. So first of all, we can save energy. Why we can save energy by doing so? Because the plant can be more tolerant for the air temperature in the greenhouse. If we have, for example, in the greenhouse above 30, 35 degrees Celsius, we have a problem that all the stoma in the plant is closed and basically is not doing any photosynthesis. But once we are cooling the roots, there is no problem with having 35 degrees, even slightly more in the greenhouse, and the plant is still going to do photosynthesis. Also, it is more resistant to frost conditions or again, to extensive heat damages once you control the root zone, if you can heat it or cool it. In the end, healthy plants, they use less of oxygen. Once you control less of chemicals, Once you control the root-related, the root zone, you control the root-related diseases like Pythium, Fusarium. This is things that we don't encounter in our system, where our system is installed. We almost don't encounter these root diseases, and which are very, very problematic in agriculture because of the time that you find out that you have a root disease. It's too late because you don't see it. It's usually up to the end of the growing season, and then you see you cannot sell your products. The other thing is, for example, tip burn. All the nutrients are more available for the plants. For example, the calcium pump and other pumps are working better when the root zone is controlled. And finally, you get more oxygen. So basically, the root zone temperature is most important for getting the plants higher yield, better healthy plants. And roots have the only technology in the world for heating and cooling the root zone. So if we look a little bit at some things, and let's focus about cooling. So you can see two plots. There is somebody with the open mic, and it's quite interfering. If you can check it out, please. Thank you. So if you can look at the cooled and uncooled plots, you can see the increase of 25% in yields. If you look at chives, it's a very important crop. You can see a huge increase in yield between the cooled and uncooled. Also in the NFT, and we can also see in basil, it's a heating problem, okay? Basil likes heat, but still you can see you can see for yourself the improvement of the system, of the yields in the system. Now, we can supply the heating tubes or the heating or cooling tubes in all four formations of cultivation. Basically, it's either we cultivate in a raw soil, grow bags, open pots, or NFT system. Here you can see, for example, an installation in a cannabis farm in Israel, and you can see how every open pot has its own cooling device. Or if we are in the soil, we can put the cooling tubes, and again, it is very easy to install and reinstall from one cycle, one growing cycle to another growing cycle. Okay, one thing I must add while talking about growing cycles, that using our systems, we can usually add a growing cycle because the plant is growing much faster. Okay, so our vision, basically, it is to become the significant players in the global agriculture technology by introducing this technology. This technology is patented, we have a patent, and we are, our company is registered company in the Australian Stock Exchange under the symbol of ROO since 2017. So we are a strong and firm company. We have projects. We have a few projects all over the world. In Israel, most of all the cannabis farms are using our system, for example, which is a very high demanding crop. We have other projects also outside of Israel, in Europe, in the United States, in China. And what are we looking for? What are the action items for this meeting today? So first of all, commercially speaking, we are looking for distributors or dealers to help us to penetrate the Singaporean market, because we believe that the Singaporean market is a very suitable market for our technology, because either it is indoors or small greenhouses that you want to increase yield and you need to fight. Basically, it's a war against the heat around, the temperatures in the greenhouses. Everybody that grows know it. The other thing we are looking for is maybe an R&D partner to look and see if we can bring new products to the Singaporean market. For example, grapes, have grapes in the greenhouse, fresh berries, things that usually you cannot find in Southeast Asia or in hot country. Right. So my time is up. So thank you very much for your time. And please, if you have any questions.
We do have we've got time for a few questions, Mark. And one of the sessions coming up is talking about R&D collaboration. So please stick around for that session. So the first question I'll get to you, and I agree, a really interesting approach to root management. How do you do the cooling? And also at the same time, how do you increase oxygen to the root zone?
Okay, so both of them are, the two answers are correlated. Once you control the temperature in the root zone, there is oxygen always, but it is not available for the plant. But once you control the temperature, and the temperature is between 20 to 30 degrees, let's say roughly, the oxygen is available for the plant, and this is why you increase the oxygen availability. How do we heat or cool the temperature? Basically, we have three ways of installing our system, three energy sources, okay, let's call it. The first one is to use sustainable energy from the soil. Deep in the soil, deep in the ground, the temperature is more or less stable. It's about 25 degrees, give or take a few degrees. So we have a special cooling heat exchange that we install in the soil. And basically we are using this temperature to, in the soil to cool or heat the crops. And this is without using any energy, not fossil energy, not electricity, nothing. Okay, this is number one. But not everywhere it is possible to do. So the other way is installing a heat pump. We have a very, very efficient heat pump. The heat pumps today are most efficient. They work with a controlling system that we manufacture by ourselves, right, and with our sensors. So it is a very, very efficient heat pump. And with that, you can come to either extreme temperature or to get the exact temperature that you want. For example, in all the cannabis farms, we use the heat pump because it is a high value crop that you want.
Great, Mark. I'm going to ask you to perhaps take that up in the networking session. There are a couple of other questions you can see on the Q&A list that we haven't got to, but those people can join you a little bit later. But we'd now like to go to our final pitch. So thank you very much for that, Mark. Really interesting solution. Our final pitch is from Invictu. And we have this afternoon the COO of Invictu, Oz Garinkol. Oz, are you nearby?
Can you
Mark,
hear me?
if you stop sharing, I can hear you, Oz. Hi.
Wonderful, thank you. Appreciate it. Let me share, and once you see it in presentation mode, just tell me if you will.
I can see it in presentation mode, so.
Wonderful. So I'll start, right?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So thank you, everybody. I'm Oz from Invictu, and let's start. So high-value agriculture requires precise control of the environment. Today's solutions, however, have many challenges. They're expensive, the implementation is slow, they are inflexible, making changes is difficult, and service calls are costly, and the grower is not in control. All of these are obstacles for dynamic agricultural industries. In our solution, the controller are rules in the cloud. There are no physical controllers at all. The rules are in a language built for IoT, and no programming skills are needed to write these rules. The end customer controls the logic, always for free. And implementation can be done remotely without any site visits. We can support any configuration, even on-prem, cellular versus wireless, whatever is needed. This technology as a basis allows us to remove a lot of time and many costs from an implementation of a control system. At the core is really the language, which is actually reduced to a rule-based system and optimal for any control system, not only in agriculture. It's as expressive as any other language, and it's designed from the ground up for sharing and large-scale systems. On site, the only thing we have are sensors and actuators, which accept remote updates, have built-in calibration, they don't drop data, can be installed in less than 1 minute, and we have options with battery or micro USB. To complete the end-to-end solution, we also have a UI, of course, to monitor and actuate as needed. Let's look at a quick example of one of our customers. An image of the farm can be seen on the right-hand side. This customer has multiple identical hydroponic pools in which the pump circulates the water in each pool in turn, and the EC, pH, and water level are gauged, and as needed, they are replenished from the reservoirs on the right. What you see is the control system for that installation. It is 4 text files in the cloud, very, very small files. And if you wanted a 10 times bigger farm, this control system would be very, very similar. And one of the best things here is that you, the grower, can write this, can manage it anytime, and develop your grow protocol on your own for free. No need for anyone to intervene. In terms of a business model, the demand for control systems comes from new indoor construction and artificial lighting use cases, one I will elaborate on in a minute. So imagine a grower in Montana that wants to work with our system. So what we will do on our online marketplace platform is we will bring in, for example, a high school student from Israel, and this farmer in Montana can purchase an hour or 2 of writing the rules from the student on our platform and enjoy the benefits of the platform for very, very little interaction costs. In order for demand and supply to meet on our platform, we're already making big strides. Of course, the language is the core. The playground, which is 50% built, is where one could exercise our rules, their rules, and make sure they work, and so forth. So again, on our online platform, we will match supply and demand. It will be value creating for both sides. And from our perspective, of course, doing digital marketing with all the modern technology today to do that in hotspots such as Holland, Oklahoma, California, Israel, we will be able to acquire new customers with a very low touch sales approach and a very low cost of customer acquisition. In terms of customers, we're already working with our second cannabis customer on very interesting LED lighting use case, for example, to provide the daily DLI while minimizing the consumption of electricity for the lighting, ensuring bulb temperature does not exceed a certain temperature, and of course, probabilistically going out and finding out the cloud situation in that location to ensure that at the end of the day, at the end of the lighting period of that day, indeed, the DLI is delivered fully while minimizing all the energy requirements. In terms of an ask right now for this meeting, we are looking for customers in this region, later on a reseller, and funding at this point is mostly for the development velocity, to increase that velocity. In summary, this is the last slide. Our technological platform, which we own end to end, really allows us to be very, very competitive in terms of pricing, implement completely remotely, give you the end user control and flexibility of your grow protocol / logic. And of course, the online platform will allow us to match very, very well between the supply and demand, as I mentioned in the example, and of course, a very low cost of customer acquisition. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Oz. Just looking for some of the questions to come through, but just while I'm waiting, how many customers overall do you have at the moment?
So this is actually kind of our coming out party. We are in stealth really up until today. We have 3 customers right now, all of it with 0 marketing, everything cold calls, etc. So we're, again, we're ramping up our V2 product and so forth and so forth. So we're getting ready to do more more marketing, but have not done any to date.
Okay, well, congratulations on coming out. So good that we can be
Thank
that
you.
platform for you. In terms of, obviously, you've been speaking to quite a few people before that while you've been building this. What part of the solution resonates most with people, do you think? That people, when they, the light bulb goes on and they just say, wow, this is, what I really need.
Yeah, so if you look at what's going on in control systems these days, even the best in the world, and I will mention them, Priva and Hoegendorn out of Holland, they use physical controllers. If you want to look in how PLC languages are structured today, the multiple variants and how much you need to learn. And the bottom line is that really the control system supplier is in control. The second we walk in and we show a very, very competitive price point, and we want to give the control into writing the rules. And again, high school students do write rules in our company, and the grower sees that they can handle the rules on their own. They don't need to make calls, and they take control. It's really a winning proposition.
Right. Yeah, simple on both levels, as you said. You can install sensors so easily as well. One of the questions that's come in: is there backup control if there is a loss of cloud access?
So there's anything you want. If you want local cloud with a data pipe somewhere in your country, if you want anything on location, everything on location, it's not complex to build a local solution. So anything's possible, whatever the customer wants.
Okay, be careful. Don't promise too much. One final question, I think I know the answer. It's, can your solution be integrated with other third-party sensors?
So our communication protocol is MQTT. Once we decide to publish the standards, and again, it's just a simple MQTT string that goes up and down, really, really simple. Once we publish those standards, we will invite third-party rule writers from anywhere in the world and developers of sensors to put their product on our platform and to transact, and again, bring the costs of product and of transaction down. And again, as large as the network will be, supply and demand will be met much better.
Right. No, listen, I think it's a fascinating solution, and the whole sort of distributed and openness of the system and that kind of flexibility is fantastic. Okay, I think I'll just see if there's one more just quickly come in. No, what I'll do now is just advise folks, if they've got more questions for Oz and maybe you're being shy, you can take advantage of the networking session that's about to come up now. Or alternatively, you can also make an individual meeting with Oz. So thank you very much, Oz.
Thank you.
We'll see you a little later in the networking. So folks, now we are, as I've said, going into the networking. Those who were with us yesterday know how this works. If you look at the chat room, one of my colleagues will have inserted the address for me. I think that's just coming, is it? This just makes it very easy. See the address that's in the chat room now, you just click that, or you can type in the bit.ly address that you see on the screen in front of you. But if you just click the one in the chat room, that'll take you to the next slide, which shows you the 5 chat rooms. And if we just scroll down a bit there, and then underneath each of the companies that we just heard from, there is a join meeting. Hit that hyperlink, and that will take you to the waiting room for the particular session. You'll then be asked, do you want to leave the session to go into that particular Zoom networking session? You say yes, and then you'll be admitted in time. You can come out of that session, you leave the meeting, and then you come back and search for this page again, which you'll still have open, and you can go into another meeting. Then to come back to the main session, which will be recommencing at 4:10 Singapore time and 10:10 a.m. Israel time. And so I certainly, so you get back to the main link by using the link that you use to access today's session. But certainly come back at 4:10 because people were talking about collaboration. At 4:10, we'll be joined by various people taking us through a great program, which is the Singapore-Israel Industrial R&D, which there is interesting funding options for you there. So that'll be outlined, and then we're moving on to a panel to discuss that in more detail. And then we will finish up with the corporate panel, which I shall be moderating with some key companies here in Singapore. And then Yoav Seidel will be taking us out. So we'll see you again at 4:10 p.m. Singapore time, 10:10 a.m. Israel time. See you soon. Okay, so we're now going to hear from Crystal Lee, who's manager at the Singapore-Israel Industrial R&D collaboration. And so over to you, Crystal.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Crystal from SIIRD, or CIRT, Singapore-Israel Industrial R&D Foundation. And today I'll just be sharing some of our programs to help companies based in Singapore and Israel in terms of R&D technologies. So CIRT is a cooperation between Singapore's Enterprise Singapore and the Israel Innovation Authority, IIA. And together our mandate is really to promote, facilitate, and support joint industrial R&D projects between companies based in Singapore and Israel. So the intent really is to help Singapore and Israel companies to create new or enhanced products and technologies, access new markets and customers, as well as shorten the time to market. And before I get to the deep dive of the programs, maybe I'll just share some of the exciting benefits. You know, we help to de-risk R&D projects, but the best part is that we don't require any collateral, we don't take any equity, and we don't expect any IP rights of products or technologies. That we leave it up to the company. So, so far through our 20 years of existence, we've actually approved 182 projects, through which more than 2,600 research scientists and engineers have been employed. And we've also helped to create a total research investment of $239 million US. So really, how are our programs designed to help companies such as yourselves? It's really two main pillars, the first being the partner search, and the second being the financial support. So the partner search program, really it is a tech matchmaking platform. Oftentimes we have requests from one country, knowing that the other country is equally strong in agri-food tech, and they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, you know, we want to find a partner. Can you help us in that? So we'll actually send them a form, and it's a very quick form to fill up. They can send the information to us, and we'll actually tap our networks in both Singapore and Israel to find a partner for them. So it's a very fast, free process that really helps to tech matchmake. Really, the partner search, the intent really is to help to let the companies come up with a proposed collaboration. So I'm very happy to share that because we've seen so much interest in agri-food tech in both Singapore and Israel, we'll be rolling out a series of initiatives to help to actually collate industry statements or problem statements from industry players, so that, you know, it's easier for companies such as yourself to see what is the demand on the ground. So hopefully the key, what we're trying to do is to connect companies to key demand drivers in both agri-tech and food tech industry. And hopefully selected projects will actually secure an LOI with leading industry players. So the second pillar, of course, is financial support. What happens when companies have actually been connected? We hope that they can actually come up with a project. So we actually help to support different kinds of projects. On the slide here, you can see 3 different types of grants, but really the left 2 are R&D grants. So these are projects that should be looking to create or enhance new technologies. So they should be, the grants for these projects are really US $1 million or 50% of the total qualified project cost. Whereas the third grant on the slide is a feasibility study project grant. So these are a lot more early stage, more for the POC type of projects, really to determine technical feasibility and the market acceptability. So for example, we would have companies looking to, let's say in food safety, to test whether a certain chemical is actually safe to be used, whether the insect protein is actually safe to be consumed. So these are the kind of projects that are very early stage but are still supported, and the support that we give is up to US $30,000. So I'm also happy to share that because of agri-tech and food tech being such exciting ecosystems in both Singapore and Israel, we have actually been in discussions to increase the financial support for agri-food tech projects. So more information will actually be released soon. So just stay tuned, or maybe just write to us to find out more. Another thing that's definitely on the table is that we'll be actually helping companies to leverage the technical expertise of research institutes and institutes of higher learning. So industry feedback shows us that, you know, a lot of the expertise actually lies in such institutes, and companies would like to tap on them. So we will help to, we will allow companies to increase the financial support for such institutes to up to 30% of the total project cost. This is an increase from other projects, which is 20%. So what are the cost items that we actually fund for these, what are the cost items that we actually fund for the R&D projects as well as the feasibility study projects? So they include direct R&D manpower, which should be directly employed by your company, software and equipment, hardware, travel between Singapore and Israel, although that's on hold for now, hopefully not for long, as well as consultancy and subcontractors. So this would be your vendors and your institutes of higher learning. We will also have, on top of the US $1 million, an additional grant of US $30,000 for joint commercialization activities. So that is really to help your product go to market, which is what we're trying to do. Additional benefits are listed on the slide, including overheads, G&A costs, of which it's 25% and 5% respectively. So how do companies apply, or which companies are eligible for the grant? So there are 4 main eligibility criteria. First, you must be a Singapore registered company and an Israel registered company. Both companies should be jointly submitting a proposal together. The second would be either company must not have more than 20% shareholding in the partner. And the third is that at least 30% of the R&D work must be done in Singapore and Israel. And the fourth is, of course, technology and product development must have potential for commercialization, because at the end of the day, we don't want the tech to be stuck in the lab. We actually want it to be commercialized, to hit the shelves, and that's what we hope for the project as well. So in terms of evaluation criteria, it's listed on the slide here, but really we look at the breakthrough, the level of breakthrough for the technology, the technical capabilities of the companies to undertake the R&D work, financial capabilities to co-fund their own portion of the project, as well as commercialization capabilities to actually bring the product or the technology to commercialization. So I'm really happy to say that we've approved quite a number of agri-food tech projects, and they are all coming from a wide range of subsectors and areas of interest. For example, just on the slide here, we have on a sugar substitute, we have for cultured meat, and we have one in aquaculture. So we are open to any kind of project as long as it's in the agri-food tech industry that will actually qualify for our enhanced support. I'm also happy to say that in addition to what I've shared, which are the R&D projects, which are a lot of developmental work, CERT is actually also trying to roll out the pilot program. So this pilot program is to support pilot projects. So pilot projects should be a lot more near market and later stage. Instead of creating new technologies, there should be existing technologies, and it should be about deploying them, enhancing them, or adapting them. So again, these kinds of projects, they will be for Singapore registered and Israel registered companies, and they should require testing with specific customers or countries. So for a pilot project to take off, not only do you need a Singapore company and the Israel company, you would also need a third-party beta site or a pilot partner that is willing to test the project for you. but the funding will go towards the Singapore company and the Israel company. So if you're interested in this kind of technical deployment as opposed to an R&D project, feel free to also write to us. We are more than happy to support and share with you more information in the future. So I myself am based in the Singapore office, but we also have an Israel office and a manager based there as well. So feel free to contact us. I'll take no further time, and I'm really happy to pass the time to a panel that's been curated by CERT. So this panel will consist of some of our CERT grantees, as well as it will be moderated by Singapore Food Agency as well. So I'm very happy to pass the time over, and I hope you have a fruitful webinar ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. There was a lot of information presented there, and I'm sure everyone will be scribbling down notes and contacting, because as you can see, that's a really terrific program between Israel and Singapore that many of you will want to take advantage of and certainly inquire. Now to sort of dive into that a little more deeply, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Michelle Nim, who's going to moderate the next session. Michelle is the Covering Director of Science and Technology Division at the Singapore Food Agency. So Michelle, I'll hand over to you to introduce the panel, and I'll see you all a little bit later.
Thank you, Adam, for the very kind introduction. My name is Michelle from the Singapore Food Agency. Shalom and Boker Tov to our friends in Israel, and good afternoon to those who are in Singapore. I'm very honored to be invited to be moderating this panel session on the alternative foods and alternative partnerships, and how bilateral research R&D collaboration across both Israel and Singapore could benefit, as well as how the panelists have actually crystallized some of the partnership through the support of CERT. And having heard the presentation by Crystal, this panel ties in very nicely, because we are going to hear firsthand from our panelists and how they actually come together, to find strategic partnerships to actually look at, fast-tracking, accelerating product development in alternative food space. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to our esteemed panelists. We have Ilan Shamish, founder and CEO of Amite Proteins; Benjamin Smith, Director of Future Ready Food Safety Hub Fresh, or Director in the Innovation and in Food and Safety Program at the A-Star SIFB; Kobe Colestento, which is the founder of Sing Health; and last but not least, we have Nita Lavon, who is the VP of R&D in ISAFE Farms. And I'd like to invite each of our panelists to share more about themselves, as well as the organizations that they come from. First up, maybe I'll get Ilan to share more about the technology that Amite Proteins is looking at, as well as some of his background. Ilan, please.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon to some. So Amai is sweet in Japanese, and from day one we are focused on Asia. What we do is we take proteins which live in their own small piece of heaven, and we adapt them to live in hell, because food for protein is a hell of an environment. Our first use case is the first sweetener, which is a substantial sugar substitute, not just a masker or enhancer, which is tasty, healthy, and cost-effective. We do that by two technologies. One is computational protein design, and I'm happy to send you the book on the field, which I happened to write, after which I established Amai, and precision fermentation, growing it in a sustainable and environmentally friendly method by yeast or other microorganisms. As to myself, I came from an academic career, Weizmann Institute, University of Pennsylvania, established what is the main meeting in the field of structural computational biology, and then decided that this method is too good to be left for academia in the lab, and apply it in order to fix our food system one protein at a time. Thanks.
Thank you, Ilan. Maybe we have Dr. Ben Smith.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be on this panel. So I'm here representing A-STAR and ISAFE, so A-STAR being the Agency for Science, Technology and Research here in Singapore. And we're part of our Ministry of Trade, so we have the mandate of developing science for Singapore to aid the economy and aid Singaporeans. And so all of what we're talking about today is very much a big part of that. And I'm affiliated with a fairly new institute under A-STAR called the Singapore Institute of Food and Biotechnology Innovations. And as you can guess, that everything to do with ISAFE is everything to do with food. And so we're really interested in how we can build the right science and capabilities to develop out new food ingredients, understand, as Ilan said, how ingredients are incorporated into food. From my particular background, I'm interested in the food safety aspect. So many of these new novel foods and products being brought to market, how can we actually support the development of them from a safe consumption perspective?
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to invite Colby.
Good afternoon and good morning. I'd like to say thank you to our host for organizing this event and to my fellow panelists and for those of you in attendance as well. My name is Colby Calasanto. I am a co-founder and the COO of SingCell. SingCell is an A-STAR spinoff company that utilizes a proprietary 3D microcarrier-based technology that was developed by my co-founder, Professor Steve O, over the last 15 years of his career. Our 3D microcarrier-based technology paves way for operational and cost-efficient, scalable manufacturing solutions for clean meat companies. Today, we offer process development and contract manufacturing services, and we aim to gradually expand our technology platform to add in edible microcarriers and other complementary technologies. We have a process development lab located in Biopolis, nearby to several A-STAR institutes and other biotechnology companies here in Singapore. We're currently evaluating multiple sites to develop for contract manufacturing in the different designated food zones here within Singapore. Our aim is to establish SingCell as the Asian partner of choice for cultured meat companies. Thank you.
Thanks, Colby. And last but definitely not least, Nita.
Hi, everyone. And thank you for the kind invitation. I'm very happy to be with you all. My name is Neta Lavon. I'm the VP R&D of Aleph Farms. Aleph Farms is a food company that is poised to become the leader of sustainable food system of food. We have been the first company to release a beef steak made from cultured cell already in the 2018. We have been very much focused on developing the whole technology platform from A to Z, from isolating the cells, growing them in bioreactors, and creating the muscle tissue, which is actually the steak. We use a fraction of the resources that are used compared to traditional farming without growing or killing any animals in our process. We have a unique cell types that we are using, non-GMO platform for producing the meat. We have a strong academic background coming from the Technion Institute of Technology, and together with our good partners from all over the world, Cargill, Migros, and VVNP from Singapore. We see Singapore as one of our major markets for developing our cultured meat, and I'd be happy to elaborate more later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, fellow panelists. I think, for the past 2 days, we've been hearing a lot of companies, doing their own pitches and obviously looking for business opportunities. And I guess, having the four of you here would actually help to share some of your, experiences and insights on how, you found each other, because as it is finding like-minded partners within a single ecosystem, it's hard enough, and what more looking at cross-border collaboration. So perhaps I might want to invite some of you to actually share how you journey along and how you actually submitted proposals through CERT and ultimately get funding. Maybe Elam and Ben, because I think the two of you are working on similar projects.
Yes, indeed, we are collaborating, and it was a pleasure to meet A-STAR already in 2018. I was in the Future Food Asia Award, and since then have been more times in Singapore and have met A-Star also in other places in Europe and the US. There is no question that A-Star is a world leader in everything that has to do with safety of novel foods, working together with Impossible Foods now with Perfect Day Foods and with many, many others. And we looked for a good partner and the applicable R&D where we are paving the way and establishing a new category. And A-Star was a natural collaborator to work with. We also found a very, I won't say friendly, but it's much more than that, a very warm and same mentality, same mindset of doing the business together, looking at how with synergy we can move forward. So after getting to know A-Star very well, we looked for the best way to collaborate, and Seared was obviously the natural channel to do that. And I think Ben can give it from his side as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ilan. And I have to mirror those thoughts, and I have to say that ESG, of course, and many of the organizations here in Singapore that are working actively to get people together was a big help in establishing some of these initial connections. But what is great is when you find a partner, a research partner that does have the same outlook and focus and are really committed to taking an innovation forward. And that's what we're trying to do with helping the partners, but also learning from each other. And I think that's a key thing that we've done in establishing this R&D collaboration, and what the CERD program has offered us is not just an opportunity to take a great innovative product idea coming out of MI forward and something onto the market, but also it's offering us a lot of opportunity to work together and share, learn from each other, and build information. And so from my perspective, being a food safety person, these are new types of products that are coming onto the market. We want to look for how we can get them through the approval processes of agencies like the ISAFE and others. And this gives us that opportunity to do that and help as well commercialize and bring products to market. So it's a great opportunity, and we're really pleased to be working with MI and others on these sorts of projects.
Thanks, Ben. Netta and Colby, how did the two of you meet?
Yeah, thank you. So I know the work of Professor Steve O for many years, since the era that we were developing technologies for cell therapy. And he is a world-known leader in the field of growing cells on microcarriers in large-scale platforms. And I was very happy to meet him when I was in Singapore in 2019. And the technologies that he develops are really, I would say, complement to what strength that Aleph Farms have in terms of, we have the raw materials, we have the cells, unique cell lines that coming from bovine, from different breeds. And we believe that the platform that we can develop together with his expertise can bring us to a very high efficiency of product and production. And it took a while until he actually established his own entity as SyncCell together with the CEO Karolis and Colby. And then it was the right time to start this exploration and the feasibility study that is funded by the SIRD, which is great. Colby, please.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that it was definitely a timing situation where, Aleph Farms was at a point where their process had matured to, the high point that it was, and is now looking for to translate it further into the commercial settings and being able to move to serve larger populations of individuals. And it's also coming at a poignant time for us here in Singapore, where we're also focused on seeing how, as an organization, we can be an impact for the 30 by 30. So the collaboration was very timely. And our two technology platforms have synced up very well, and we're extremely excited to execute this feasibility study together and look for what the future holds for us in the full-scale R&D project.
Thanks, Kobe. Yeah, I just want to kind of switch gears a bit, because I think I caught what Netta mentioned about, Singapore, being a major market, but, like Israel and Singapore, we have a very small domestic market. So I'm sure that, as you talk to your investors or your international collaborators and all that, one of the inevitable questions would be, why Singapore? What's the value proposition, in right-siding some of the activities here, vis-a-vis, what you can do back in Israel? Because even in Israel, you have very, well-known, institutes that is really, really strong technically. Likewise, even in Singapore, we have very strong engineering capabilities. So how do you actually, find that common ground and make sure that it's more of a synergistic approach rather than, a competing one?
I don't think there is any competition. And when you have a focused target, in our case, it's very simple. Ben Smith and A-Star are giving safety aspects and also have some nice way of screening things, technologies which we don't have. We bring the protein, but in a larger sense, I think Singapore and Israel are both startup nations, are both very international hubs, are both anchors to innovation that goes out to the rest of the world with funding that is dedicated, whether it's in Israel more coming from outside, in Singapore more coming from inside, but a lot of funding is dedicated to innovation. So Singapore over 30 of putting a flag of saying that more food will be made in Singapore, and being a small island, just like Israel being small, surrounded by places where we cannot collaborate very easily with, are things which give us a common ground to join forces with a very clear definition of who does what, but also a lot of discussions which move well beyond the framework of SEERD into other aspects, with a joint approach of bringing something good to the market, in our case, a healthy sweetener.
Yeah, I invite the rest of the panelists to chime in, Ben, Netta, or Colby.
I mean, I would really echo what Alan is really saying here. It's not about a competition in any way, shape, or form. Our relationship with LF Farm has been phenomenal. It's two very synergistic technology bases coming together to create a further impact. There's no challenge surrounding that. So our experience has been excellent with LF Farms and with Netta and the team over there. So, we're very happy at this opportunity and can look forward again to that future.
Yeah.
Just in a sentence, if I may, there is too much competition between big guys. And when you're in the innovation business, you have a very small cake, and you don't want to fight over pieces in the cake. You want to enlarge the cake. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we're all going to echo the same sort of comments here. And it's also looking at what are the ultimate goals here as well. And meeting these food security issues, dealing with obesity and those sort of global issues. Everyone's in it together. And if we can work together to bring the right products and the right tools, systems, whatever we may be doing to market to meet those needs, well, then I think everyone's aligned on that.
I would like to add, please, that we also had some discussions with Ben and the Fresh team, and they're looking on how to develop a safe technology. Is not directly only to Singapore, but they have a wider vision of developing technology by understanding the needs of the global needs, not only what is required for the Singaporean consumers, but also to other Asian countries and even all over the world that would not limit the implementation of our technology. So this is pleased.
Yeah. No, we're really pleased too, and I think we're turning around the saying, think globally, act locally. When I look at it from a regulatory and safety perspective, I actually like to think locally and see what we can do locally, but act globally, because really once you address it in one region and get it working, well then how do you then take it to the next? And having that forethought in developing out these products which are going to meet global needs, we need to be taking that stance, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really heartening to hear what Netta mentioned about, having, crosstalks and discussions with Ben, even though, two of you are working on two separate projects. So I guess, in terms of the connectivity, meeting the right people within the ecosystem, I think is really, really important. And I guess with that, good facilitation by, the community is also paramount to the success of, driving the projects to fruition. But I guess, some of the things which I'm sure that the audience is also keen to understand is that, while you find the right match from the beginning, identifying the right, commonalities and shared interests, a lot of it would also stem in, the agreement in terms of the research collaborative agreement, as well as, some of the commercial terms which need to be negotiated, as well as, IP. So how do you actually circumvent or even work towards trying to tease out some of these, issues?
Let me jump in, because I'm not sure that everyone else is. The simple answer is you leave it to the lawyers to get involved. But no, I think, again, when you're working on these sorts of projects, it's coming in with the context of what you're trying to achieve. And don't get me wrong, IP is important to everyone, and dealing with the right approaches to move products forward is important. But you've got to look at this as a step in the context of meeting your end goal. At least that's how I view it, and I think hopefully the other panelists share sort of similar aspects. And so there's business aspects, there's companies involved. I'm obviously working at A-Star for a government, but we still have our interest on IP and things that we develop. But I think that in all of these sorts of instances, it's coming to the right collaborative model, and coming to the right agreement with your partner. And if you've got the right partners and you found the right people, these sorts of things fall into place. The lawyers will always go back and forth on what's the meaning of a word and try and nut it out one way or the other. But bottom line, I think we come to the conclusion. And there I'd have to say as well, meeting these connections and meeting the people, ESG, EDB, the groups here in Singapore, as well as groups over in Israel, they do a fantastic job of pulling people together for the better and for the good. And when you start out on the right step, then coming up with the approach to do it legally is a lot easier. I'm not a lawyer, but that's my opinion.
You're half a lawyer, you know legal matters very well. And
I've done too much of it, yeah.
I would just say that with regards to the question that was asked, I mean, for our situation specifically with LF Farms and SingCell, it's the foundation of the relationship, right? It's a collaboration with an eye towards impacting, again, not only just the 30 by 30 in Singapore, but also then how do you take that process that is developed and deploy that in other areas in the world that can really have a much more substantial impact. So these foreground and background questions around IP, it's just a conversation. Although when lawyers jump into it, it becomes maybe a slightly longer conversation, but with the right partnership and the right people that are driving it, all pulling in the right direction, it's not Everest. It's something that is easily, you can work through and you can just discuss. That's my thinking.
Yeah. I would like to add that definitely each party is protected by his background IP, so no one is concerned by that, and the rest is into negotiation between the companies, and I feel that the SIIRD is giving the framework to get these agreements and make sure that it would be in place prior to starting the project. And this is also a great help in making sure that everything is clear and settled before the initiation of the project, and this is one thing. The other thing is that, you know, not all interactions related to novel IP. We see Syncell as a contract manufacturing organization and as a basis for Aleph Farms to start building our biofarms in Singapore, which is something that we already planning and working on. And this is, you know, another category that these interactions are very important.
Great, thanks, Netta. Yeah, I guess I'm really running, you know, quite a bit of time. Like, I only have like about 5 minutes left, but I just want to talk about, you know, the food safety aspect of, you know, alternative foods, because, you know, this is quite, in fact, it's paramount and it's critical in order to make sure that your product, you know, gets consumer acceptance. And what is basically, you know, the efforts that, you know, each individual is undertaking to ensure that, you know, the food is safe, as well as to ensure that, you know, customer or consumer acceptance is there before you launch a market. Maybe I can direct this question to Ben.
Okay, well, it's always great when the moderators from the SFA, because we think the same sorts of things. But yeah, no, from my perspective, there's no such thing as food security without food safety. And obviously looking at how food safety is addressed in bringing these new products to market is a big part in getting acceptance. But equally, I think with a lot of these products, it's the consumer and their perception around it as well. And so how you balance that and understand how you're doing your safety assessment is something that we're also looking very closely at. So Netta at the beginning mentioned about processes not involving animals and slaughtering of animals. And equally, that's something that's coming up at the moment in the food space with regard to testing ingredients and bringing them on the market as well, not actually testing on animals. And in this space of cultured meats, that's a big thing for many of the consumers. So I don't think there's any simple answer yet of how you bring all of these products to market. We follow the same sorts of approaches as we do for any food, but it's about talking about it and sharing the process, understanding these new products, how they're going to be used, and working in instances like this directly with the company. So with Amai, that's what we're doing. We're looking at their products, we're looking at how to understand them and how we can actually do the testing to generate the right data. And from that, we won't just learn for Amai, we won't just bring one product onto the market, we'll learn a lot about what we can take forward for other companies coming to Singapore with with new proteins and alternative proteins. And that I think is great because it's contributing broader than just a product coming onto market.
I must add on top of that, number one, in our case, PepsiCo, Danone, Ocean Spray, some of our partners, we have done a lot on the regulatory front before they approved it for tasting it for R&D, even before the regulatory agencies gave the green light. But another thing is we don't need to be afraid of regulation. Regulation is a kosher stamp for us and also will enable more consumer acceptance. And from the other side, while there is a lot of regulatory issues with small molecules, in the case of Aleph Farms, Syncell, and us, we are proteins. Proteins have much less safety issues compared to small molecules. So yes, we do need to do digestibility and allergenicity and impurity characterization, but it's nothing like small molecules. And we are happy to work with EFSA, FDA, SFA on all of these issues and actually write a new chapter also on the regulatory side because we are opening here a new category.
I would just say on that, for anyone that's on the call that's playing around with small molecules, don't be scared away. We can still help you with the safety of them too.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, I know we have one last minute, that, you know, one of the new, I would say, paradigms or outlooks of the field of new proteins, I don't want to call them alternative proteins, is the fact that we're going to be transparent in opposed to the conventional or traditional meat producers. And this is really in the basis of all the community. So being transparent also goes hand in hand with safety considerations, and really showing the consumers what do we do exactly without hiding any ingredients or slaughterhouses or anything that is, and I believe that by that we won't only supply a safe product, we would also increase the consumer acceptance of our products. And that's the new era. That's what the Zoomers are looking for, and they're the consumers of our products.
Yeah, I would just add one final thought here is that, you know, in Singapore, we have a very forward-looking body and SFA that is taking active steps to address food security both here and hopefully then be able to support other regulatory bodies around the world in you know, going through the process and adoption and in the sharing of information. So there's that element here that makes Singapore attractive for that matter as well. And we look forward to seeing this story through to fruition.
Great, thanks panelists. I think it's really, really heartening to hear that all of you are looking at the food safety right from the onset, and I think that is really, really important because, you know, that would also, translate into, you know, what sort of activity you want to do in your business development plan as well as your go-to-market strategy. And I think I'm being prompted that the panel discussion is, supposed to end right now. I don't think I have any more time to actually ask my final question. But I guess I would just pass the time back to the organizer. And I really want to thank our esteemed panelists to be, on board on this, alternative food space. And I wish the rest of the participants a very fruitful, webinar for the rest of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michelle, Netta, Colby, Benjamin, and Ilan. That was a great panel, and I think it's bringing so much of what we've been discussing the last 2 days together. And there's nothing better than when you hear the amount of research money that has been made available and is available for research projects between Singapore and Israel. So we're now shifting gears again, but also we're looking at a money point of view. Israel, Singapore, a corporate perspective. And so I now am moving to our corporate panel, our final panel for the day. And I'm joined by, on my right, Barbara Gupillon, who's at the head of Dole Ventures. Next to Barbara, you'll be able to see Anuj Maheshwari, who's Managing Director, Temasek Agribusiness. And Deepak, Deepak Raghunathan, Head of Innovation for Ferrero. Now, we're going to get into a range of different issues here this afternoon, but I guess trying to put it into the context of the last couple of days, what we've seen with the pictures, and I guess what sort of impressed me was some of the size of them. So while we often talk about startups, many of them were already scale-ups and quite significant companies that, Anuj, you'd be familiar with a number of the companies that we're presenting. And so I guess that sort of brings it back. While we've got such a dynamic agri-food tech and emerging industry here, when we look to Israel, of course, it's been around a lot longer. So I guess perhaps just as an opening context, how would you sort of describe the differences from your point of view as you see the two marketplaces?
Thanks, Adam. As you alluded, I think innovation in agri-food tech has been around in Israel for quite some time, decades, if not, even multiple decades before. And I think, as they say, the invention comes from a need, and that's exactly what happened in the case of Israel. Obviously, one of the most pioneering technologies that Israel came up with is how can you grow crops with very little water. And that is when in the 1960s and 50s, drip irrigation was innovated. So Israel has this prolific track record of innovation around the agri-food industry. You go to Israel, you see these orchards, you see a lot of high quality food over there. if you contrast that to Singapore, we in Singapore moved to importation of food over the last few decades. And in the last 5-6 years, we've realized that we probably could, using new technology, produce much more food ourselves. And that's where the SG 30 by 30 vision has come true. But it's also something common between these two countries. And I think the common thing is both of them, to be able to create a vibrant ecosystem in this sector, will have to depend on technology, as well as the markets that they serve, the immediate markets they serve are quite small. So companies have to be international per se. And those are the common things about Israeli companies and Singaporean companies when it comes to ag tech and food tech. And that's where the common sort of fabric lies between collaboration, which I think could be immense. And in fact, some of the areas that we see of collaboration are really bang on between the two countries.
And just following on from that, when we're talking about the opportunity, the report that Temasek co-authored with Rabobank and PwC back in 2019, I mean, that talked about the enormous potential that we have here in our backyard, which obviously Singapore can't do it all alone. And again, maybe you just sort of give the viewers in Israel a sense of what that potential looks like.
Right. So I think in that report, we highlighted how the agri-food industry in Asia will grow. And I think if I remember correctly, we said it's a $4 trillion industry, which will go to 8 trillion in the next 10 to 15 years. And that's a pretty huge growth on the back of demographic changes, consumer pattern changes, and so on and so forth. So obviously Asia is the opportunity, and following Asia, it's probably Africa, where the growth of food is still happening. I think what's quite interesting is the patterns of consumption also changing, from food being the basic need to serve your body to actually being there for health and nutrition reasons, taste, preferences, cultural reasons. So I think we see a huge opportunity in Asia. We also see a huge urbanization spurt coming in Asia. So much more than many other places, Asia is urbanizing faster. And if we fast forward 10 years or 15 years from now, Asia is going to have lot of mega cities, and mega cities defined as cities with over 10 million people living in a small area, whether Shanghai, Beijing, Mumbai, Jakarta, and so on and so forth. So the solutions that we have for serving this population, which is aspiring, which wants local food, healthier food, and increasingly more sustainable food, we will have to reimagine the way we produce food, because that whole paradigm where we use vast tracts of land, produce in rural areas, we have a lot of labor who does it, and then those big trucks come into the city and you get that. I think that paradigm is going to be challenged in the world we live in. And that's where I also personally believe a huge opportunity lies for Singapore through our 30 by 30 vision, because we are in a way sort of fast tracking that development already.
Well, yeah, and I think the whole systems approach, and of course, many years ago, and Temasek did that sort of value chain analysis to look at the opportunities. Maybe over to you, Deepak, that in your role as sort of innovation lead, I mean, what are some of perhaps the technologies that you're looking at in Israel that sort of attracts you? And I know that you're looking far more holistically as well.
Right. Thanks, Adam. I think one thing's about the knowledge and technology leadership that is there in Israel. If I can compare the expertise that they had in biotech and biopharma, they've leveraged that very well into agri-food sectors. I think the alternate protein innovation landscape we see in Israel is partly a result of that application of technology into new sectors. I think for Ferrero, what we're more interested about is to look at a cleaner label, but a whole raw material focus. I think this is just to add to what Anuj just said. It's to cater to diverse taste and nutritional preferences of our consumers globally. I think one needs to take a technology view, but also diversify taste and palate. And so just doing proteins would not do. We would have to look at the whole picture: sugar, carbohydrate, fats, and proteins. I guess that application of technology and stack could certainly value add. And this is something that keeps us excited about Israel. I think the other point as well is sustainable and climate smart sourcing. Again, to ensure consistent supply, which is high quality, and to meet different taste profiles. I think we need to look deep into the genomics, also enabled by data approaches, be it crop protection, precision agriculture, or digital stack for farm management, but post-harvest as well. into the consumer chain and through the retail. So I guess we see the whole gamut of digital present, and I think Israel and Singapore are good hubs for us to source for these technologies, and we largely do that through collaborations and co-development opportunities.
And do you sort of see that there is far more looking at end-to-end than perhaps in the past there was, in a sense, just looking for individual technologies or an individual food type, that people are looking at it differently than previously?
Right. I think there's no verticalization. I think it's become a horizontal playing field. Just example I gave, biopharma coming into food sectors, for example. So I think one talks about the value stack and the technology stack, and I think the lines are largely blurring today. What used to be considered food science is no longer just what it was back in the day. I think we have a healthy mix of data, omics, and other predictive approaches. So I guess this is the evolution that one thinks about. It's not just about knowledge capital and technology capital, but I think also business model innovation that one needs to think about in serving consumer demand, be it in the region or globally.
And perhaps to you, Barbara, on we start to look at different perhaps business models, but Dole, quite famously in recent times has released the Dole Promise, which is essentially founded in all things sustainable, and the new leadership led by Pierluigi at Dole is changing very fundamentally the whole approach. How does that perhaps influence some of the things that you might be interested in exploring in partnerships with companies in Israel? What type of areas might you be looking at?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Actually, we are looking at many different areas within the entire value chain of Dole. And Dole is both an agri-business with massive plantations in Philippines and Thailand, but we are also a CPG company willing to bring nutrition to more than 1 billion people. So I would say that we are interested into any technology that will help us to reduce waste overall, as well as bringing accessibility of better nutrition. So we can go from solution around reducing sugar in our product. It can also be about inventing or looking after new functional foods, and snacks or beverages, but also from the plantation point of view is how can we improve our agribusiness practices? How can we reduce our carbon footprint while growing those pineapples and bananas? So Dole Venture is really, really keen to engage with startups from various ecosystems, and we are already engaging with quite a few startups from Israel, and really happy so far with the relationships.
Great. And back to you, Anush, in terms of kind of your investment thesis, what lenses you're using to look for potential investee companies. Obviously, the last figure I saw that you've got around about 5 billion under management, which is huge. How are you adding to that, and what's the approach?
Yeah, so Adam, we had the figure we have disclosed is in the last 5 years, we have invested over $5 billion, and we have about 40 portfolio companies. Obviously, some of the large ones like Olam and others are well known to everybody. But this also includes quite a few, what I'd say, startups who are using technology as a way to enhance innovation. And usually that comes in 4 different ways. Either it's better for you, which is better for the consumer. It's good for the planet. It's more with less, which is essentially improving the yield. The better for the planet is, of course, the sustainability paradigm to it. And the 4th one is access to all, because food is at the end of it a democratic right for every person, or frankly every living organism. So those are the 4 lenses we look at, and then we look at transformative technologies which bring about that change. So whether it is gene editing, whether it is vaccines for animals, poultry, but also other forms of digital technologies that are going into improving the productivity. And then a significant focus, at least in the coming years, is going to be around healthy ingredients for us, because whether it is in the paradigm of nutraceuticals or just higher value enzymes that can be improving nutrition or getting vitamins and others through different means. And I think because of this pandemic, we've all realized how important immunity is. I think that's an added area for us. So that's some of the themes we look at. When it comes to Israel and Singapore per se, I think there's also common areas that I see where companies are innovating. Alternate protein is clearly one area. Both countries have, we are seeing some interesting companies come in the cell-based protein area. Personally, I feel that cell-based is definitely part of the future, if not going to be a significant part of the future as the technology develops. There are other areas that both countries are focused on. Genetics. Singapore, because of its molecular biology and biopharma expertise, has always had that. And then fermentation-based technologies as well. Israel has had several companies, including flavor and fragrances companies like Fructorum, come out of them. In Singapore, we feel that that's an area where a lot of innovation can happen. So yeah, those are some of the themes that we look at from an investment perspective.
And certainly the three of you, I mean, I think it's pretty hard today not to talk about sustainability when we're talking about agri-food. But do we all think that we've seen a shift, and certainly the pandemic in terms of health and wellness, where perhaps people spoke about it, but previously it was perhaps a little bit over there. But sustainability and health and wellness both seem to be now absolutely where we're going, anything to do with food. And for you, Barbara, perhaps from a Dole point of view, I mean, is that kind of a total guiding light in everything that you're doing and what you're looking for in potential support, investee companies, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. It is on top of the agenda. I would say as well, there is a specific area where I'm particularly interested when it comes to sustainability is around the education on smallholder farmer, how they get to understand and support and agree that we need to transform our food system to be more sustainable and better for the planet. So I'm specifically looking at this. How can we educate not only on the smallholder farmers, but also within our own operations? How can we change the way we are doing business? We are looking at new technology that can help us to reduce the use of refrigerant, that can help us to reduce the use of fertilizer. So it's definitely a priority. And I think that from that will come as well a better access to nutrition, better access to more nutritious food for everyone. So definitely top of mind.
Well, thank you for raising the smallholder farmer. I think that was one of the things that was interesting to come out of yesterday's first panel on alternative proteins, that there was lots of talk about potential and opportunities. But Nitsa from Trendlines, who was moderating that panel, sort of brought it back and sort of said, but let's not forget the smallholder farmers. We're talking about all these technologies, and so many of us are involved, and we know in our region, around 100 million smallholder farmers. How are we working with those? And I know certainly all your companies are have strong sustainability messages in those regards. And in terms of Ferrero, Deepak, I mean, how does sustainability perhaps sort of tie everything together for you? And when you're looking at technology, how does it get expressed?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I think it's a good question. As Anuj alluded, I think one of our focus in the near term has been to look at whole raw material as ingredients, but I think the innovation there, we're looking at bioconversion technologies, that be microbial fermentation or enzymatic bioconversion, as ways in which we can bring in tasty and nutritive products for our consumers, but also start looking at carbon and water use as some of the key drivers for us. And perhaps on the agri side of things, as a company, sustainability has been a guiding value since our inception. And I think in areas such as palm oil in this region or cacao out of Central and West Africa, I think we have a lot of ongoing initiatives to enable and improve traceability vis-a-vis sustainable supply of some of those key ingredients for our business. So there, it's about connecting the data continuum from first mile through the supply chain, through the B2B rungs. Whereas I think from an ingredient sourcing perspective, it's about finding resilient crops that can hold the future in terms of climate smart crops, but also sustainable processing technologies such as enzymatic conversion and others, including plant-based in some cases, where we can either look at a novel ingredient approach as a replacement, case in point, plant-based dairy perhaps, but also look for new ingredients that could be plant-based and create new product categories for us.
And I'll just stay with you for a moment, Deepak. The other day we were talking about sort of different collaboration models and looking to Israel. You remarked a particular approach that you found with public-private. Maybe you could share that with us.
Sure, happy to do so. I guess one of the aspects of the Israeli innovation ecosystem has been the needs-driven approach to its IP and technology creation, which takes industry at the helm right at the ideation and development phase, and not just at the commercial or scale-up phase. I think this has been a facet that has been quite intriguing. And back in Singapore, where I'm based, in our innovation center, we're trying to replicate that through a sandbox approach, where we have capability and expertise from a Ferrero perspective for ingredient formulation, recipe, and tasting, where we work with startups, scale-ups, academia, and others to enable value-driven partnerships right at the upstream, starting from R&D through scale-up and pilots. So I guess one needs to have a healthy mix of public and private engagement, supported by enablers such as the right policy and regulatory framework, which we know Singapore is pioneering in that front.
And just continuing the kind of that collaboration model, Barbara, well, prior to being at Dole, you were actually here at Unilever, where we're sitting today, and you started the Unilever Foundry in that particular collaboration model. I mean, how do you see, I mean, you've used the expression, the four walls of Singapore, of how we actually collaborate between ecosystems and bring the best here. What type of approaches did you think would work effectively as we attract Israeli scale-ups and startups to Singapore?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I have, thanks to my previous experiences, tried to understand working with Dole, what would be the best approach. I think one thing is not changing is starting with the problem statement that we want to solve and trying really to understand where our priorities within the organization. But when it comes to engaging with different type of ecosystem, I think it's more and more important that we are keeping our eyes open, not only on the Southeast Asian ecosystem, but the US, European, and I'm including there the Israeli ecosystem. We have signed an MOU with the Israeli government to show our real commitment and engagement to work with startups. But more importantly, I think it's also important within those collaborations to remind startups that Southeast Asia and Asia in general is a potential market. It's a massive market. Anush mentioned that that in Asia and in Africa, we will be still growing a lot of crops here. So that's one thing that I think needs to be there, is to highlight the opportunity for startups to grow their business here in the region.
Right. And Anuj, I mean, your collaboration, obviously, as an investor, is demonstrated by significant investments, and you've got investments in Israel. Do you then see that, part of that thesis is then helping them to grow here, and maybe talk about some of the investments that you've made in Israel recently?
Yeah, so as Temasek, we have several investments in Israel across different themes, industrial, cybersecurity. Our recent most investment in Israel is in a company in the drip irrigation space called Reviewless. And it also, with the company, besides selling the product, they also have a digital product called Mana, which allows for farmers to digitize some of their operations and get feedback through data that comes from satellites and so on and so forth. So a very, very interesting product that they have come up with, Israeli technology. And in fact, the biggest market for that digital technology, or one of the fastest growing market, has been in India. So clearly we see a lot of collaboration possible between broadly what Asia wants to do and what Israel can offer, and in a way, Singapore being a springboard for companies from Israel to then go into other parts of Asia, whether it's in Singapore, whether it's in China, India, and so on and so forth. Likewise, companies in Singapore could benefit from learning and greater exposure to what's happening in Israel. I think Israel, the startup culture has been there, and Israel obviously has a prolific track record in creating high quality startups, which have then created value for investors. And I think as this ecosystem in agri-food tech starts in Singapore, there's quite a few things to learn. I think how Startup Central in Israel has promoted that, the Innovation Authority of Singapore. And of course, in Singapore, you can see how active ESG, EDB, A-Star, and SFA have been in promoting this industry. Yeah. So I feel very good about what we are doing in Singapore in terms of promoting that. Of course, capital is available for the right companies, and we have a very nice area around Singapore, whether it's Southeast Asia or broader Asia or broader Asia Pacific, where these companies can grow. So I think that collaboration is there, and we're continuing to see that in various events like this, but in other situations where several companies from Israel have come here to Singapore to set up an office. We are seeing that some of the companies in our portfolio. We have a company called Tropic Biosciences. It's headquartered in London, but it's really predominantly an Israeli team. And so companies like this are continuing to see Singapore as a way to sort of get into other markets around them.
And just picking up, I think, on sort of capability, I think we've got many of the ingredients here. And as you pointed out in your opening remarks, I mean, Israel's got a long history, different marketplace, even just the different size. What are the additional capabilities, and I'll sort of share this with you all, that we think that we need to be working on in Singapore to facilitate the kind of growth? Because I do think we're starting to see a move from startup to scale up. A lot more conversations are now saying, how do we get to the next level? You know, we've put the seeds in, they're starting to grow, and we're really wanting to see things generate great growth. So what are the capabilities that we think that we perhaps need here in Singapore so that we do become Asia's food tech hub that we believe is capable of being? And maybe as part of that, what other things can we draw on Israel perhaps to assist? You want to start with that, Deepak?
Sure. Perhaps what I alluded to early on, the fermentation space or bioconversion technology, I think capability to that front to, let's say, screen a wide variety of materials against strains and build new processes towards taste and nutrition. I think that could be certainly a catalyst to enable this value forward. And I think it's not just building the upstream tech stack or tech enabling capability. I think one also needs to think about the target market and the consumer needs in those markets. If one has to then go through Singapore as the springboard to the rest of Asia. So our approach then, like I've shared before, has been to bring in the right and relevant capability and expertise available within our organizational remit, and to provide that through an open innovation approach and collaborate, be it academia and startup, through multi-party agreements or partnerships to both test and validate value, but then find the right supply and scale networks there then to take it forward into a consumer, consumer reach. So I guess it's partly technology such as fermentation, but also mostly about finding the right industrial toolkit to scale and test in terms of volume and delivery.
Yeah, and if I can, I think I really support that that thinking is also bringing more opportunities for collaboration between startups, corporate, academia in a more open way, more often as well. So I think it's great. I'm looking forward to work with startups, but also to engage with the Ferreros and Olams and really to share best practices. Because when you talk about agricultural practices, and again, when you look at smallholder farmers, I mean, there is no need for us to reinvent the wheel, and there is so much that we can learn from each other and then accelerate that that transformation. So I think that's collaborative approach is one of the capabilities that I would like to see more and more happening.
Anuj?
Well, as Deepak and Barbara was speaking, I was just thinking that to make an ecosystem successful in any situation, you need human capital, you need financial capital, and in some way you need the license to operate, access to market or license to operate or whatever you call that. But it's that particular thing. I think we have the financial capital. We have great talent here, thanks to all the Singapore being a hub for a lot of talent in this space, but also the universities we have here and others from around the region to be able to come to Singapore. But I think the other part is the license to operate, especially when it comes to technology. And I think most of us agree that technology will be part of the solution to making a more sustainable and healthy and nutritious food system. Technology can be a double-edged sword, and the right regulation of technology and education of customer provides that social license. And therefore, what do we need to do more, whether it's here in Singapore or in Israel, is to create that license to operate for these new companies at large, educating consumers, making sure there are good frameworks in there. Customers, people should be willing to try new things. I mean, we are all seeing how vaccine uptakes are going to be differing in different parts of the world. A world with 10 billion people cannot live without science and technology being at the forefront of it. So I think SFA is doing a terrific job in terms of being a very forward-looking regulator. Singapore probably has the honor of being the country which has approved so many different alternate protein technologies. Impossible Foods was approved here, and I'll tell you, Impossible Food in the US, to actually launch a new product, you don't need an approval from FDA. It's just what you can. The highest level of approval in the US is something called the no comments letter. And the no comments letter means I just don't have any more comments, but I don't approve it. I'm going to comment on it. In Singapore, we actually approved it. That means we gave an affirmative view. Similarly, we allowed for Perfect Day, which came up with this protein which can replace milk substitutes, and recently a cell-based so I think the regulator is taking the right step, allowing for new technologies to proliferate with adequate safety measurements, but a lot more has to happen in terms of educating consumers the benefits and how that sort of comes together between health and wellness and sustainability. So I think that's what's needed, I think, across the world, not just in Singapore.
Well, I don't have to summarize now. Thank you very much. And I think you did a wonderful job there. We started with alternative proteins yesterday, and now this is the final panel, bringing it together and kind of the final word around education and sustainability. We can't have sustainability without education. Sustainability is about educating. So with that, I'm going to thank the panel. Thank you, Deepak, Anuj, and Barbara, for joining us this afternoon and giving us that overview. As you can see, Israel, Singapore corporates, Singapore investors are here, eager to collaborate. So we look forward to working with you more. And it's now my pleasure to hand the floor back to Yoav Seidel, who's Head of Economic and Trade Mission to Singapore, Ministry of Economy and Industry, Israel. Yoav, over to you to close us out.
Thank you, Adam. Can you hear and see me? I'll assume you can. Okay, so thank you so much, Adam, for everything. We saw quite a few collaborations with between Israel and Singapore are already happening these days. We saw some of them in the R&D session. We saw quite a few investments, also now Anuj mentioned from Temasek, but also from other entities, and also in test bedding technologies and academia collaborations. But I think what we also saw in the last 2 days of ISAFE is that the potential is substantially bigger. I mean, we had so many sessions. We have hundreds of people from both Israel and Singapore, and actually even other countries participated in each session. We had dozens of speakers talking about how to collaborate, what's their experience. And we also had a lot of business interactions in the networking sessions and also in the one-on-one meetings that we arranged, that we also still arranging actually. And it was like all over the 2 days, you can hear and understand that Singapore and Israel are both leaders in innovation and both punch really much above their weight in this field. And what my conclusion, at least, and I thought so before, but now I even think so more, is that both can be leaders also in the agri-food sector and lead the world in terms of the future technologies and do it together. So that's the most important conclusion. So me and my team in the Israel Economic and Trade Mission here in Singapore, most of our work is actually to connect, to make the right collaborations between Israeli entities and Singaporean entities, mostly companies, but not only. And we can help you, everyone that's here today, to find an interesting, a good, and a right partner for you. If you're Israeli, then in Singapore, and of course, vice versa. So what we're doing now is we've put in the chat the emails of me and also of Gerani Solano that leads the agri-food field in my team. So don't hesitate to contact us as well. We hopefully plan to do more of these events. We hope ISAFE is just the start and we can do more of these things. Also, hopefully physically when COVID settles down a little bit. And again, to promote more and more collaborations between the countries. And now is the time to say thank you and to conclude this event. So first of all, thank you for our partners in SFA for their amazing collaboration, especially Lilian and Kevin for all the work that they did. To the team for Padang, Adam, who is the chairman of Padang, but also, for all the work he did and for moderating all this event. He did an amazing job. And JQ for the hard job that he did. Gerani and Malcolm from my team for all their hard work. Serd, that did the R&D session that we saw earlier. So thank you, the Serd friends and Crystal particularly. Also want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all the speakers. We have, I think, almost 50 total. And also to you, all of you guys in the audience. So thank you for joining us. Keep in touch. You have our emails. And that's it. We hope to bring you more value in the future. And we hope that if you're Singaporean, you found some interesting opportunities to collaborate with Israel. And of course, if you're Israeli, you've done so in Singapore. And if not, we are here to help you and to facilitate that. Thank you so much. And the event ends actually now. So bye-bye.